Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I am a comic artist and film enthusiast. I have drawn some art, and I would like to... I don't know, man. I guess I want to talk about a movie. Today we're discussing Joker, Folie à Deux, or Joker 2 if you're nasty. The only problem that I have with Joker 2 is that it's not very good and bad, and I don't like it, most of it. But aside from that, it's the perfect movie, 10 out of 10. I'll get into all my actual thoughts on this movie, but if I'm being real, the thing that is most disappointing to me about the film is that I wanted it to be so good. This is a movie that takes big swings, huge ones, and I have to commend it for that. I wanted it to prove wrong the people that were saying that it was bad because it was a musical. That is not inherently a bad thing. That's a great idea for a Joker movie. That's a great idea for a sequel to the first Joker movie. But boy howdy, the execution on this is so rough. I'm going to avoid spoilers mostly. I'll talk about a few things that happen in the end pretty vaguely. So if you haven't seen it, it shouldn't spoil anything major for you. If you want to see it, maybe this movie is for you. Anything could be for you. I like Hellboy 2019. Start with the things that do work about this movie, because there are a couple. I think the most notable thing that is good about this movie, Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga. They are fantastic actors. They're both very good actors. Is this a movie where that shines? Some of the time. Every once in a while they have a cool moment. There's an interesting character on display here and there. I love Lady Gaga. I have loved her as an actor since A Star is Born. With what she is given, she gives it her all. Same with Joaquin Phoenix. We saw in the first Joker movie, he plays this character brilliantly. He adds so much depth and sadness and heartbreak and anger and rage and excitement to this character that anybody else might not bring, and he does a fantastic job with that. On a technical level, the cinematography is also very good. It's a beautiful looking film. It's, I think, 2 or 3 times more expensive than the first Joker movie. It does not look that. It doesn't that. I don't know where that money went, but it looks just as good as the first Joker movie did, which I have always appreciated the cinematography in that film. I liked the first Joker movie. I didn't like some of it, but I liked the first Joker movie quite a bit. This one keeps the same visual style, the grunge, the lighting, all of that is good. They do a couple of really interesting things with some of the musical numbers. Visually speaking, they do interesting things with the musical numbers. And there's a couple of notable, very communicative shots that I think did a really good job. Most notably, the final shot of the movie. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it is one of those things that I think is really solid and does something very interesting. Also, the sound design is pretty good in this movie. It's a very naturalistic use of surround sound. There were moments in some of the kind of imaginary sequences where you'd be in the middle of an audience and it sounded like you were in the middle of an audience. That was cool. Arkham Asylum was very immersive in its sound. People were shouting and grunting and doing weird stuff all around you. Pretty threatening environment to use surround sound, but they used it well. And as far as the musical numbers go, there is one that was interesting on any level to me. So that's good. They got one. They achieved what I was hoping and thinking that this movie could and should be. They reached that for about 45 seconds, and it was pretty good. It was pretty solid. And that is pretty much everything that I think works in this movie, and that's a huge, massive, gargantuan bummer to me. Before I go all the way into the negative and make you think that I'm a harsh and horrible, uncaring person, hey, would you want to give me some money? I have a Patreon, patreon.com/JohnBonjour. It supports this channel, it supports my comic book, it supports my artistic endeavors. It's a wonderful thing, and I appreciate each and every one of you that subscribes to it and follows it. So yeah, just give that a go. Also, I have a free comic book, Edge of Border Town. It's on my website, johnbonart.com. It's also on my Patreon. Give that a go. I think it's really good, and subscribe to this channel. So yeah, that's my ad break for you. Support me in every way humanly possible would be great. Now on to what doesn't work about this movie. The most frustrating thing about this is that the first movie is this complex, engaging, character-focused not action, but horror drama about a man who becomes this killer and becomes the Joker. And it asks you these deep questions, and it requires your attention to figure out what's going on, what's true with this unreliable narrator. It requires the viewer to be engaged with the film. Joker 2 feels like it's a little bit frustrated that there's a viewer at all. It's the only response that I get from this movie is it feels frustrated that I would watch it. It's as if the first movie set up all these interesting questions about the character Joker and what's going on in his mind, and the second movie was made as a mostly courtroom drama to answer all of those questions, a thing that I don't think is an inherently bad decision, but it's like this movie goes on stage and says, I have all the answers to the questions you've been wondering, and it looks you dead in the eyes and it goes, It's a hugely punishing viewing experience because not only does it not add anything to the original, it also doesn't have anything to say as a story. The story of this movie is so bare bones that you could describe it in, I think, maybe 2 bullet points. A thing that can work if you're focused on intricate character moments and developing relationships and doing something interesting. But this movie also isn't that. Like, it's not an interesting character study. It's just following Arthur through Arkham Asylum for 45 minutes. Then he runs into Harley, and they sort of develop a relationship, kind of. And then the movie's basically over. Some stuff that happens after that, there's a long courtroom segment, which gives us pretty much nothing. That is granted, where the only musical number that I thought worked was in the movie, so that's got it going for it, I guess. That's really the movie. Joker is in Arkham. Joker is at a courtroom. End of Joker 2, folie adieu. And that sucks so bad because this is a movie that was an interesting concept. It's got musicals, it's got Harley Quinn, it's got the Joker we were really invested in and wanted to learn more about. This should be a slam dunk. What I mean when I say it's a punishing viewing experience, it feels flashy. It starts with this animated segment, which I was like, cool, interesting choice. I like that. We're making calls. And then it just doesn't do anything with any of the ideas it sets up. It's also kind of the antithesis to the first Joker in that it requires literally 0 media literacy. The first Joker is an unreliable narrator telling you an interesting story that you have to piece together and puzzle out and figure out what it is. There's an argument to be made for a lot of that being pulled from other movies. I will grant you that, but it was done in an interesting way, so I didn't mind. This movie is also told from an unreliable narrator, but it makes it extremely clear when those things are happening because it's the musical segments, and it doesn't further the plot. It doesn't make you piece anything together because the musical segments aren't adding anything to the movie. They just pause whatever might be starting to kind of happen in this story and then give you a 5-minute segment of Joker very poorly singing about how he feels and not giving us any insight, just saying, love, I sure do love love. Love is interesting, isn't it? Don't you think? What about love, huh? Ain't it a thing? That's not what a musical should be. Musicals should be outbursts of emotion. Musicals should be developing the character or the story. They shouldn't just be a pause to do nothing. Bare minimum, they should be interesting and good to listen to. And I make this argument for La La Land all the time, so I understand what some people might say, which is, oh, he's not supposed to be a good singer, he's the Joker, he's supposed to be this crazy guy, and I will give you that, except it's in his mind, okay? So he should be a good singer. The songs are bad, they're not interesting, and they're not fun, and they sound extremely bad, they're grating to the ears. You could say it's a stylistic choice, I will grant you that. Maybe it was. But that doesn't make it a good stylistic choice. There's so many more interesting versions of this movie that they're trying to do. I don't know how this is the script that made it into the final cut. You could really lean into that split personality thing and have Joker versus Arthur. You could have Harley Quinn flip the dynamic of what we expect from that character and have her be the manipulator. That was the thing that I thought this movie was doing for a second, and then maybe it even is, but it just doesn't do it well. You could have tiny little Batman come and kick Joker's teeth in with his Skechers, and I think that would be a more interesting version of this movie. This is a movie that at the end of the day feels pointless. And that kind of sucks because there's an interesting version of this movie that could have been made. You wouldn't have to change all that much, just add to it. But they just didn't. And again, this thing costs so much money. It cost a crazy amount of money. It does make me sad to see it bombing, but it also makes me a little bit happy because it means that I don't have to sit through another one of these. Thank you so much for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, comics, TV shows, movies and TV shows based on comics, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and comment down below what you'd like me to review next, and what you thought of Joker 2, folie adieu. Or do none of those things because I am not your dad.